welcome to your nervous system flow for fertility. So don't get too caught up on the word flow because this class is absolutely restorative and gentle based. The intention in the design of this sequence is to move you out of your sympathetic tone, which is our stress response, our fight and flight response, and into more of your parasympathetic tone and response, which is our relaxation response. So all of the postures are gentle. We start at the wall with our sit bones right against the wall, finding a more support for our spine as we start to deregulate into our nervous system. You will need a few things. So yoga props are great. If you don't have a yoga bolster, please grab a cushion, a pillow, something elongated is great. You can also roll up a blanket. Have perhaps some blocks handy. If you don't have blocks, you can use thicker books, maybe 2-inch in diameter or width. And then lastly, you'll need your mat against the wall, so free of anything hanging on your wall like such. And half of our class will be spent kind of against the wall in this space, just preparing again our nervous system. So go grab your props, find a really nice, comfortable, safe space in your room, and then we'll get started. You can go ahead and we'll move into a pose called Viparita Karani, which is legs up the wall. So there is a trick to get into this movement. If you take your glutes and your feet right against the wall and start at the edge of your mat. If you start in the middle, you'll roll off. So we start on the very edge of the mat to make sure that we stay in the very center. And then if you lower your shoulder down, you can then begin to lift your hips and your legs towards the wall. Now we want to start with the sit bones towards the baseboard just so that we don't have to keep moving ourselves closer towards the wall. Few things as we move into this resting posture. We will be here for about 10 minutes working with some gentle hip openers. So even if you can't visually see me, it's going to be okay. Just listen to my cues as we start to change the leg positions. So this legs up the wall, we actually have really active legs. So the feet are flexed, the heels are stacked over top of the hips. We're finding lots of flexion through the feet. And our body is more in a 90-degree angle. So the back is flush with the floor and the legs are flush with the wall. If that feels very uncomfortable for your hamstrings, if you're really tight in your hamstrings and glutes, slide away from the wall a bit. The biggest checkpoint here is to make sure that your back, the back of your sacrum, lower part of your spine is flush with the floor. So if it's not, then please move slightly back away from the wall. So you want to create space through the back of the pelvis. Take the arms out to the side, palms of the hands can face up. Take a moment to just shimmy the shoulders underneath so we have a nice lift through the chest, and then we'll gently soften the gaze. Taking a nice full breath in, let's connect towards the chest and the heart, and then this slow, deep exhale out through the mouth. So one more as such, taking a nice big breath in to lift and expand. And then this slow, deep exhale to let go. Quieting that space between the eyebrow center. Keep the lips together, separate the teeth, and just let the tongue slowly fall to the bottom of the mouth. So ensuring you're not holding on to any tension along the ridge of the jaw, as well as the front of the throat. Every time we exhalation, we're letting the legs feel nice and heavy as we begin to feel this connection further towards the pelvis and the lower spine. So with your next exhalation, try to allow the physical body to sink deeper and deeper. So this is your opportunity, your chance to not hold on to any of your physical sense of self in this moment. And what I mean by that is through fertility and conception, we are constantly in this state of stress and in this state of anxiety. And so now is your time to just pause, allow your body to just receive the energy of relaxation. Nice big breath in. We'll begin to breathe the breath in towards the lower part of the belly. So let your belly begin to expand. And then this slow exhale out, letting go of any tension through the lower back and the pelvis. Also a wonderful stretch for the lymphatic system, moving the lymph from our feet, our shins, down towards our thighs, and creating some energy within the legs. My favorite aspect of this posture is to release any tension along the entire spine. So it's releasing tension through the lower back, that upper thoracic, right in between the shoulder blades, tops of shoulders, and then finding more harmonious balance in the back of the neck. Please, in this moment, start to take your your exhalation a little longer. So as you inhale to a breath count of 4, can you slowly exhale out to a count of 6, 7, or 8? So the intention here is to slow the exhalation to longer than your inhale. Finding that inhalation expand up the front line of the body and that slow, deep surrender down the back line. Moving into a practice of deep surrender, not holding on to your sense of self, just letting go in this moment. Big breath in through the nose, front body rises. Slowly on the exhalation, trying to also let go of any emotional or mental strain that doesn't serve you in this moment. Any limitations, any fears, any expectations, and any judgments about your fertility and conception journey. After this next elongated exhalation out, we start to quiet the breath back to its natural and normal pace. Just begin to please wiggle into the toes. Even start to create circles with your ankles if you choose, creating some flow through the feet. Our legs can be fairly heavy in this semi-inverted posture. Please switching the directions to just flow the feet in the opposite movement. Everything about our practice of yoga and movement is about finding balance. Next exhalation, please begin to bend the knees out to the side. And we'll start with our first pose here, which is bound ankle pose. Pads of the feet connect together. Taking a nice big breath in. So depending on your flexibility, your heels can move closer towards your pubic bone or tailbone, or they can be slightly forward, creating some external rotation in the hips. Place your hands to your thighs, but we're not aggressively pushing into our legs, creating tension in the knees. All we're doing is just placing the palms of the hands. The backs of your elbows and triceps are pressing on the floor. So your shoulders aren't doing a lot of work, but we're just receiving some pressure through the hands to intensify this hip stretch. So let's take a nice big breath in. I just want you to notice on the inhalation what you feel in your body, what changed since you brought your hands towards your thighs. And then this slow exhale, trying to release in towards the glutes. So nice way to awaken in towards the pelvis and the back. I find this sequence at the wall extremely calming and nice after a long day, perhaps just before you go to bed, especially if you are having trouble sleeping, if you're on any fertility or conception medication, which sometimes challenges our melatonin levels. So this little sequence you can do right before to bed. It just kind of moves you into that parasympathetic tone and settles you into that space. Gentle pressure through the palms, just pausing here. We're letting gravity help assist these movements with the heels, perhaps moving closer towards that pubic bone or tailbone. Good. Most likely feeling a stretch either through your inner thighs or your outer hips and glutes. Always depends on where you're the most tight. With a big inhalation here, on the next exhalation, please just move the knees towards one another, and we'll once again stretch the legs one at a time into our legs up the wall. So feet are hip width apart, flexion through the feet, making the legs fairly active. We'll move into another stretch here. This is referred to as cow-facing pose, Gomukhsan legs. Little trickier, one of our most complicated postures. So if you slide your right knee, so it aligns with the middle of your pelvis or the navel, and then take your right heel to the left side of your hip, and then we cross the left ankle over the right thigh. You can also stack your knees on top of one another. So if you just take a quick peek at your knees, they should be stacked in the midline of the body and your heels beside the hips. Some might find this pose easier when we're laying down versus seated. Now please reach the arms out to the side, palms of the hands face up, letting the fingertips just sort of curl into the palms of the hands. So because we have the left hip over top, that's the glute we're working with. So pause here, take a nice big breath in. Just breathing in towards the left seat. And then as you exhale, can you just kind of let the flesh around that sit bone relax? We don't need to do much here. All we're doing is working with the breath, creating the connection between that mind, body, and soul. So with our inhalation, it's always about the awareness of our body. This journey into fertility and conception is all about internal processes. So when you inhale, feel all the aspects of your body, noticing where you're feeling tension, tightness, stress, strain, or maybe it feels so good to just work that space and that glute. On the exhalation, we move to the surrender piece. We start to let go of the contraction, that need to control this situation and this journey that we're on. So big breath in, finding the breath still flow up the front line of the body, and this nice slow, deep exhalation out. If you take anything away from this class, it's the elongated exhalation that moves you into that rest and relaxation response. The longer, the deeper the exhalation out through the mouth or the nose, the more we start to move into that sympathetic tone. If you would like a little more movement here through the outer edge of that left calf, you can also, or hip, you can place your hands towards the thigh. We gently add a little bit of weight through the thigh more than the knee, and it might add more intensity in towards your left glute. Please continue to stay within your pain-free range of motion. Always important to honor the changes of your body, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. Take one more big breath in. As you exhale, release the arms alongside the body. We'll uncross that left leg from the right. Return back into your legs up the wall. It's always our pose of reset. Feet are flexed, toes are curling towards the hips. And then we'll switch outside. So now we take that left leg underneath, knee aligns with the navel, cross your right ankle over top. So that's part one. Maybe the foot just rests to the floor. And then some of you might be able to stack your knees on top with your heels beside either the thighs or the knees. Now, if this isn't working for you, it is a pretty demanding stretch. Please know that you're also welcome to just stay in a cross-legged position, just crossing your shins with your hands towards your thighs. Because we have the right hip stacked on top now, that's the glute that we're working with. So reaching the arms out wide. I always like to change my arm position here. So if you want to take your arms into more of a cactus arm movement, meaning your wrists align with your elbows or goalpost posture, just ensure, please, if you're taking this shoulder movement, that you find a space where your shoulders can completely relax. It shouldn't feel like you have to hold on to your arms or shoulders. We have a nice big breath in. Now here we're releasing into the right glute. So as you exhale, we're softening through the right glute. Good. Trying to find, once again, the balance between the left and right side of the body, and specifically the left and right side of the hips. Noticing what you're feeling on the inhalation. Can you direct the breath there? Try to very gently let go of that contraction. When we're in a stress response, the glutes absolutely respond, and they respond by helping to support the lower spine. So we forget when we're in an anxious state how much our muscles contract, which can be really challenging over time. If we're always in this flux of contraction, our muscles start to get weak, and we want the blood flow to move properly towards the tissues. We want the lymph to be able to move out of our body, carrying all of what we do not need out of our system. So one more big breath in. If you are going a little further, placing the palms of the hands to the top thigh, and we just add a little bit of weight through the hands. Sometimes that can increase the stretch in and along the right glute. Big breath in, a nice slow exhale out. Perfect. We'll uncross now that right leg from the left. Please return back into your legs up the wall. Feet are flexed, toes are curling towards the hips. Release the arms once again alongside the body. Let's reconnect to the belly. So big breath in towards your lower belly. As you exhale, let the weight of your lower belly begin to soften towards your lower back. Letting go again, just trying to disconnect from the glutes, the back, the hips. This next stretch, fairly easy. All you're gonna do is take your legs as wide apart as you can from one another, depending on your flexibility and your range of motion. So we're in a V position with the legs. Just take a quick peek up at your toes and your knees. We have an internal rotation of the thighs. So the thighs are rotating in as the toes are pointing towards the hips. So we have the tendency to really just rock and drop our feet out to the side. I want you to gently roll the hips and the thighs in. Reach the arms out to the side. Taking a nice big breath in, reconnect towards the belly. So feel the belly lift and rise, slow exhale out, letting any tension along the back line begin to fall. On the back line of the body is the ridge of the shoulders, down along the spine, the hips, and the pelvis. So yes, there's a contraction in your quads. Now when we contract the quads, our front thighs, we stretch into our hamstrings in the backs of the legs. So keeping the thighs nice and engaged, but then receiving the stretch in the backs of the hamstrings. Now, if your glutes are tight and your hamstrings are tight and it's pulling on the low back, that's also contributing to that constant contraction and tightness. I like to add a bit more range here. So internally rotate your hips and thighs more. So that's happening from the front of the hips. And then just slowly relax your legs and kind of let your toes go wherever they are. Most likely they'll point towards the floor into that external rotation. So once again, we internally rotate the hips and thighs, pause and hold here. And then we exhale, let the legs relax. And this is nice because we're receiving in our body what it feels like to contract and relax. And when we're on our journey into fertility and conception, there's a lot of contraction that's happening, not a lot of relaxation. So just feel that in your tissue, in your hips. It's also nice because we're adding more movement in the bony pelvis. So we internally rotate, just pause and hold. This movement's coming from the hips. You shouldn't necessarily feel it in your knees or your feet or your ankles. Good. Last time we'll internally rotate, pause and hold. So we're drawing the hips and the thighs forward. Good. Seeing if you can maybe sneak your feet a little further apart, adding more range of motion. The stretch generally, again, through the inner thighs, these adductors, or maybe your outer hips and glutes. It always depends on where you're the most tight. Let's settle the arms back alongside the body for a moment. Nice big breath in, reset the breath towards the belly, ribs, and chest, and then slow exhale out. Perfect. Once again, lift the legs back into your legs up the wall. Doing so with the strength of your inner thighs. Flex the feet, toes are pointing forward. Reach the arms out to the side. Big breath into the belly. Slow, deep, audible exhalation out. We'll bend the knees. So take your legs quite wide. It's like a squat at the wall. You'll take your feet hip width or further apart. So the knees may be aligned with your armpits or like your mid biceps. You will work in whatever range you're the most comfortable. If you squat a lot, you can get a little bit more width. If you're a bit tighter in your hips, the legs might be closer together. Moving the heels down towards the sit bones and then just gently press the feet into the wall. Hands to your knees, backs of the arms are resting on the floor. That's it. So nice big breath in here. Slowly on the exhalation, just releasing into the low back. Okay. So if squatting positions are challenging for your knees, here's a great option and variation so that you don't have all that tenderness and tension in the knees. I like to do a little sway of my hip, so rotate your right hip in. The right leg kind of crosses along the midline of the body. Left leg falls out a little bit, so kind of like reverse windshield wiper movements, and then twist again, rotate that left hip forward. Let the right hip rotate out. So we're working again with that internal rotation through the hips and external rotation. So the hips are doing opposite movements. I love these asymmetrical movements because they help to find more balance in our bony pelvis. So we'll do that a couple times, like windshield wiper movements where we're keeping the pads of the feet to the floor, unless you're working with the outer edge of that hip. You feel really nice in the hips and the glutes. Let's draw back with the knees aligned with your armpits, hands to the thighs, so back into the squat position. The nice big breath in here. On the exhalation, one at a time, stretch the legs back into your legs up the wall. So work with a bit of a twisting posture. This one gets a little challenging, so hopefully you have some space. I'm going to first go over to the right side because I have the most room. And you definitely want to snug your sit bones towards your baseboard so you have more control. All we'll begin to do is slide the legs as far over to the right side. I like to go one leg at a time. Now perhaps they touch the floor, maybe they hover, and then right hand to the outer edge of the left thigh, and then reach this left arm up and over. So a gentle twist here. Please modify if you feel like you're too close to the wall. If it's a really intense stretch in the front of the hip, you can find a gentle bend into the knees. And if it feels super awkward, you can also move yourself away from the wall. I'm catching my feet on this ledge here. So just a nice big breath in. We're breathing into the left side of the ribs. So we're adding some rotation here. And then this slow exhale, just soften through the shoulder. And if you gaze towards that left hand, then we start to stretch into the right side of the neck. We're not here too long. We'll first start by stretching the left leg back, followed by the right, and then we just sort of teeter the legs. I like to go one leg at a time just to add some resistance. You can even find a gentle bend. I'll modify this side here because I don't have enough room. And then you can bring your gaze to now look over the right shoulder. So the right side of the pelvis will have lifted up just a little bit, taking a big breath in. Now we're breathing into the right side of the ribs, and as you exhale, we once again soften through the tops of the shoulders. Good. One more big breath in as you exhale. Please shift the hips back, so one leg at a time, returning into legs up the wall. Flexion through the feet, arms as they are, reconnect, big breath into the belly. As you exhale, nice slow audible exhalation out through the mouth. Please keep your left leg as it is and just cross your right ankle over your left thigh. So if you're looking at your right leg, it's a figure 4 position. And we just pause here for a moment. So nice big externally rotated movement again through that right hip. If you'd like to go a little further, bend your left knee and plant maybe the heel towards the floor first or the big toe. What you want to make sure as we work through this really big hip and glute movement is that your back stays on the floor. So if you've bent your left knee quite a bit and it peels your tailbone and your back off the floor, settle to that space where your back can remain flat. Reaching the arms out, we have a big breath in once again towards the belly, and then this slow, deep exhale, moving the breath towards the right hip and glute. So this is our variation, the wall variation of our figure 4, that thread the needle stretch. I like to once again take my arms up and overhead. You can even interlace the fingers behind the head, drawing the elbows to either sides, right? Always switching up the shoulder stretch while we're here, and it's all about receiving. On this journey into fertility and conception, it's kind of constantly about giving, right? Giving parts of ourselves, giving who we are, giving ourselves to other people, other situations all the time. And this is about receiving, letting your body actually receive the breath, letting it receive this space of relaxation and surrender. But not only that, just self-love. We're so consumed with fertilization and conception that we lose this connection to our body and to ourself. If you're going a little further over time, you can bend the left knee more, which moves that right shin closer to the chest, which increases the stretch. So it's the relaxation of that connection, the contraction that we're trying to move in towards that right glute. Our body tenses when we're in stressful situations. Absolutely. When we're working with anxiety, our breath changes. So can you just receive, open the chest, lengthen through the heart, all the possibilities that are before you. We will switch legs in a moment. If you're really starting to get into the goods of this movement, then stay here for a few moments longer. Otherwise, you can stretch the leg. Good. I'm just going to keep my arms behind my head as I was, and I'll switch out to the other side. So we have the right leg straight, cross the left ankle over the right thigh, figure 4 position, foot is flexed. First thing is just to pause here, making sure the back of the sacrum, so that's the very back of your pelvis, is settled on the floor. If it's not, move closer towards the wall or move a little further away. We begin to bend the right knee, so it's not a huge movement, and it shifts that chin towards the chest. So nice big pause, breathing towards the front line of the body, and as you exhale, perhaps the shin moves a bit closer towards the shoulders. Always important to stay in your pain-free range of motion. If we enter out of our comfort or range that feels healthy in our body, we then also move into the stress response. So because this sequence is about your nervous system, we're trying to find all of those pieces in our practice where the body feels good, the breath can move with ease, and we can relax and surrender. We feel safe and supported by the mat beneath us as well as the floor in front of us, or the wall. Going a little further, perhaps you can bend the knee, heel towards the sit bone. We breathe into that left glute. So nice big glute stretch and opening movement. And please, again, stay here for however long you choose. This is one of those poses that once we get into it, it can feel really great through the low back. If you are ready to switch, we simply slide the right leg, uncross the legs, please lower the arms back alongside the body, palms of the hands face up. I like to take one last cross-legged position. So just cross the legs so the shins are stacked kind of in front of one another as if we're sitting cross-legged in a chair. If you place the palms of the hands to your thighs, just in front of the knees, so we're never sort of pushing directly onto the knees. We're more or less moving from the hips, and the arms are nice and straight. This is great also for the upper shoulders and back. If you're sitting for long periods of the day, letting your shoulders sort of roll forward with your head hanging low, this is a great little stretch to get into that upper back. So big breath in, reconnect at belly, ribs, chest, and heart, and then this slow exhale out. Please switch the direction of the cross of your shins. So just finding your non-dominant direction, hands towards the thighs, gentle pressure through the palms. We have a big breath in here so the arms are nice and straight. And as the arms are straight, we can settle the shoulders right into the floor. Good. Curling, it's like this uncurling, this unfolding of the sacrum towards the floor. A heaviness felt through the lower part of the back, and that deep sense of surrender. We will start to move on to our mats, and we've been here for almost a half an hour, so we need some ease to roll over, please. But let's just find the legs, bring the knees together, feet to the floor. So sort of like we did earlier in that squat. I want you to wrap your arms around your legs, bring your chin to the chest and your forehead towards the knees, and pause here. So finding more flexion, we've been laying down all this time. So gentle lift of the shoulders. Perfect. Wherever you have the most room, whether that be that left or right side, you can just let your legs and feet drop over. I like to move myself just a little bit away, but we're going to stay on the side for a moment with the arm underneath the ear, and we'll pause here. So with the hand, that free hand in front of you, just to rest the shoulders. Please no rush. Right? It takes a while for us to transition from these supine positions, especially for our back. And then when you feel ready, you can push into the palm of the hand, and we'll begin to lift ourselves forward. Wonderful. Please just take your knees nice and wide on your mat. We'll move into a wide-legged child's pose, reaching the arms forward with the forehead to the floor. You can also stack your forearms on top. So nice movement here. We're in flexion now, so the shoulders can draw forward, and we're tipping the pelvis. So with a deep inhalation, just taking one more deep breath in. On the exhalation, slide the hands underneath the shoulders, and we'll press forward onto all fours. I've just changed the direction of my mat so that you can see these next few postures just a little bit better. So I'd love for you to grab your bolster, your pillow, whatever you're working with, as well as your blocks, and we'll move into a restorative wide-legged child's pose. So I'm going to show you lots of different options you might want. Everyone's a bit different as to how they like the setup of this posture. How you can create a T position with the blocks, which is more helpful, but we want an incline of this bolster because we'll be resting our chest and our abdomen. Now, if sitting on your heels is not possible, you can grab something also just underneath and between your sit bones and heels. So your knees are still wide. We're in our wide-legged child's pose position, and then we take the bolster elevated. And you want a bit of freedom here so that we can cross our arms underneath, and then you can allow your head to draw towards the bolster. Now, this is one variation of the elevation. Some of you might be quite comfortable if you have sort of a previous practice of yoga. You can actually lay down fully on the bolster with even nothing in between your feet. So if you feel like you want a little extra movement, a little extra support, elevate that bolster. And if you're quite comfortable with your arms alongside the body, then we'll stay with our chest laying over the bolster and the bolster on the floor. We'll rest on the left ear first, just bringing the gaze to look over that right shoulder. What we want to feel in this posture, and I like to tuck it closer towards my hips and pelvis so I can really kind of hug onto that bolster. I'm just taking it a little bit further forward, just so it doesn't interfere with my microphone. But we pause here. You don't want to hold on to any tension or weight in your shoulders. So slide the arms around until you feel really weightless with your shoulders in your chest. Nice big breath in. So because we're resting on our left ear, get really heavy with the shoulders. Let the chest, the abdomen, even the ribs kind of settle towards the bolster. Sit bones towards the heels. And because we're turning our gaze to look to the right side, we're stretching down and along the left side of the neck. So nice quieting position here. We have a big breath in. On this slow, deep exhale out, soften once again through the shoulders. Please turn the direction of your gaze. So now turn your head to look towards your left arm, resting on your right ear. Soften through the shoulders. Big inhalation, we're breathing into the back body. So you're trying to breathe into your lower, middle to upper back. And as you exhale, heaviness through the chest. So all about that deep surrender. This is also nice to let go of any tension in the front of your abdominal wall. So we forget that oftentimes we grip tension in our abdominal wall in towards the pelvis, the structure of the pelvis, which absolutely interferes with blood flow towards the uterus. So when you exhale, can you find this nice sense of surrender in the front of your belly? Releasing down through the right shoulder. So nice stretch for the right side of the neck. Okay. We'll take one more big breath in. Nice big exhale out. Turn your gaze to look forward. Just push the bolster in front. Okay. Please settle the knees about hip width apart. Lean forward, curl your toes under, and just stretch the sit bones towards the heels. So nice little foot stretch. Now, if you feel as though you would really like a downward facing dog here, just to get off your knees, walking the palms of the hands forward, they are absolutely optional. And then we'll lift the hips and the sit bones up. Good. Taking some movement here with a nice deep bend into one knee. You can start to root and press through its opposite heel. So moving from hip to hip and side to side. We're not here too long, but great way to get off those knees and work with a different stretch. We will move once again into another restorative pose. And this one's prone, meaning we're laying on our belly. You'll need your bolster or your cushion, whatever you're using. I like to take a chip foam block. You can also use a blanket as well as one of those blocks. And what we'll do here is this one's referred to as eagle arms. We'll cross the arms in front of the chest like this. And it's going to help to stretch the very tops of our upper back and shoulders. I have this block here to support my pelvis and my pubic bone. So it looks a little something like this. Everyone's position of the bolster is different. So I take mine just kind of underneath the breasts so that my shoulders are forward and above the floor. But up to you where it finds comfort. And we have this blanket or cushion. I have a chip foam block underneath the pubic bone because otherwise it creates a really deep back bend in the lower back. So if you would like a lower back bend, remove the block. You can see that it creates more extension in my back. If you know that your lower back's fairly sensitive and it is a soft prop, then you will use either a chip foam block or a blanket. Blankets are going to be the nicest. Stack the elbows so they're in front of one another. This really depends on your upper shoulders, and then lay the forehead to the block. You can also elevate the block to different levels if the forehead doesn't reach. So shift around. It's one of those poses that you really have to find what works for your body. So moving into those spaces that feel comfortable, toes point behind. Doesn't matter which elbow we have in front to begin because we will change it. And then we'll soften and close our eyes here. Big inhalation. The connection point here is the space between the shoulder blades. So when you inhale, we're breathing in towards the shoulder blades. And then as you exhale, letting the heaviness of the shoulders draw forward. If you are in your implantation stage and you do not feel comfortable laying on your tummy, you can once again move into your wide-legged child's pose with some support. You can also move into a one-legged king pigeon pose if you would like to keep your abdomen free and clear. Taking a big breath in, those of you joining me in these eagle arms movement, and then we soften through the shoulders. So our first connection is where we go with the breath. Like, where are you feeling this stretch in your own body? Tension, tightness. Can you breathe into those spaces with more ease? It should feel like the shoulder blades and the shoulders start to move away from one another. We want this great width through that upper back. Letting go of any tension in the front of the abdomen. So that bolt block or blanket, I have a chip bone block underneath the pubic bone, is also working as proprioception as to where we need to breathe and relax into. So if you really tend to grip in the front of your abdominal wall, lower pelvis, and sometimes that movement's like unbeknownst to us, this is your opportunity to let go. At any point in time, I'd love for you to change sides. So when you feel like this stretch becomes too much, I like to first just release the arms, forehead to the block once again, and the arms in that cactus arms position just before I change. And then bringing the opposite elbow in front. So crossing the arms as wide apart as you can. Palms of the hands can face down for some people. Palms of the hands can face up. When we face them up, we deal with more external rotation through the shoulder. When we face them down, we deal with more internal rotation. And then we pause here. Big breath in, breathing towards the space between the shoulder blades, almost right behind your heart. And then as you exhale, one of the shoulders, let the shoulders roll forward towards the ears. One of my favorite teachers once described in a meditation, the space between or the back of your heart are like doors, these big, beautiful, ornate doors, and we step through them to witness the temple of our heart. And I always loved that visualization of these temple doors right in between our shoulder blades, that when we step into, we begin to witness aspects of ourselves. So that's the space that we're trying to open and expand so that we can see that internal beauty, even though on this journey we sometimes feel like we've lost so much of that luster. Shoulder blades draw nice and wide. Feel the tops of the shoulders also begin to move away from one another, taking these nice full breaths in. Surrendering towards the front of the pubic bone, any tension releasing through the lower back. Please stay here again for however long you choose. A couple minutes is what we're trying to hold into and onto. If and when you do feel ready to slide the arms apart, taking your arms once again to that cactus arms position, forehead to the floor, soften here. So just letting the chest feel nice and heavy as even the rib cage kind of finds that bolster, the pillow, the rolled up blanket underneath. Slide your hands underneath the shoulders so they're nice and wide. We push into the arms, curl the toes under, and then begin to move. I'm just going to push the props away. Your knees will draw nice and wide, big toes to touch. And we move into a wide-legged child's pose, but we'll add a shoulder stretch here as well. So with your elbows bent, forehead to the floor, palms of the hands behind the head, fingertips point up. If this feels okay in the backs of your arms, try to slide your elbows more forward with the forehead to the floor. So if a big breath in, all you're doing here is pushing the elbows straight down. That's it. You're using maybe 10 or 20% of your effort, staying within that pain-free range of motion within your shoulders. Forehead will stay down. Lower the palms of the hands. Take a nice big breath in, and then that slow, deep release out. Hands underneath the shoulders, and then we'll press forward onto all fours. So we'll be moving in a prone position again, laying down on our stomachs. If you would much prefer, you can lay down on your back. Now, prone positions are nice if, again, you haven't received implantation as of yet. So if this is more preconception, because it is bringing some blood flow to the front of the abdomen and towards the uterus. So if you draw down onto your tummy here, we place the arms underneath the elbows, palms of the hands face down. I always like to just give like a gentle little wiggle here as I move and shift the hips. We won't be here too long, but we're going to release a bit further into the pelvis. You won't have a ton of pressure with your body weight onto the abdomen. You'll see in just a moment. Lifting through the chest and the heart, just a nice way to get into that lower part of the spine. If you would prefer to lay on something, grab a folded blanket. You can also place it underneath the front of your lower belly and your pubic bone. So we'll take the arms out to the side. into that cactus arms position. And then let's just start by lifting the right hip. So your knee aligns with your hip joint or the crease, and the leg is more 90 degrees. That's the posture. So as you can see, because this right hip bone is lifted off, we don't have full pressure on the lower belly, which still makes it a really safe pose. Now you can bring the forehead to the floor. This creates more alignment through the spine. Or if you want a little rotation here, turn your gaze to look towards your left arm while resting on the right ear. So we have a big breath in, breathing in towards the back body. This is a restorative posture. We're trying to soften through the shoulders, elbows slide apart, as well as the front of the right hip. So each and every exhalation, can you just allow the front of that right hip to begin to release? Maybe you already comfortably sleep like this. I know a lot of people like to sleep in this position. And it's also offering some asymmetrical movements into our pelvis. We want the mechanics of the pelvis to work properly, which means function. Why we do some of these internal and external rotated positions in fertility is to bring more blood flow towards the pelvic organs. And our pelvic organs is the bladder in the front, right towards the pubic bone. We have the uterus right in the middle, and then the rectum behind that. So when our pelvis is moving functionally, optimally, it's also getting all this fresh oxygenated blood. There's no restriction or tension towards the uterus. So all of it matters. Please turn your gaze, bring the forehead down to the floor, and just slide your right leg to meet your left. Keep the arms as they are. Give your hips a bit of a shakeout, so wiggle them to that left and right side. We'll just switch to the left. So hike your left leg to about that 90-degree angle. Knee aligns with the hip, and then you can turn your gaze to now look towards your right elbow with your left ear to the floor, or keep your forehead down. So big breath in. Elbows are heavy. Now this is again for my friends that have the tendency to really grip your abdominal wall. When we're in a stress response, we contract. So this is your opportunity to let go of anything in the front of your body that doesn't serve you, any of that tightening, that gripping, even let your heart start to expand and relax. Notice where you're feeling some restriction, and can you move the breath to those spaces? Lots of heaviness with each and every exhalation. To me, my yoga mats are very sacred spaces. They hold everything. They hold my emotion. They hold my physical body. They keep me safe. So when I'm here, especially when I'm laying down in these prone positions, it's just a really nice connection towards all of the support systems that I have around me. And as someone who feels like she can always do things on her own, which I cannot, and I think that the majority of us are always in that space, it's nice to call upon our support system when we need it, especially during the time of fertility and conception. With one more big breath in, releasing one last time through the front of that left hip in towards those inner thighs and even that glute. When you feel ready to switch here, please take your hands once again underneath the shoulders. Draw your left leg back to meet the right leg. Hands underneath the elbows if we slide them back. Curl the toes under, and we'll once again move into a wide-legged child's pose. This just helps to shift, moving into more flexion, drawing the sit bones towards the heels. Reach the arms in front, maybe these stacked arms. Taking a big breath in here, breathing in towards the back body, and then this slow, deep surrender through the sit bones. Good. Oh, and Baxter's doing a little upward dog. Sliding the hands towards the shoulders. Of course, he's going to find my mat. And then I want you please over to the left or right side of your body. If you haven't seen my dog Baxter, it's always in and out. I just have to let him do it. But what I would love for you to do is once again grab your bolster. Here I am on the right side facing towards you, but you can really take whichever. It's okay because we will get to the opposite. You'll need your block as well as the bolster, and we'll do a nice lateral position. So legs are in a 90 degrees, knees, ankles, feet all stacked on top. Again, some of you might like the bolster closer towards the pelvic crest or your hip crest or slightly forward. We draw the shoulder towards the floor, and then the ear and the side of the head is resting on the block. So this shoulder might not necessarily touch the floor. The most important thing here is we're getting this really great lateral stretch through the side body. If you bend your left arm, take the hand to the waist. So everything should feel stacked on top. Your shoulders, your hips. We take a nice big breath in. I want you to breathe into the side body. So we're breathing towards the ribs, really trying to expand these intercostal muscles. And then on the exhalation, we're letting the lower part of the ribs relax. So we're expanding here, top, and then we're releasing lower. That's part one. And the bolster is just starting to sort of mold into this little space here. We have a pocket where there's not necessarily any ribs because they start about midline. And then that space in between that iliac crest, right? That freedom spot. That's where we're just trying to create a little bit of movement, a little bit of tissue regeneration. And then we take full breaths in. Your left arm will draw up and overhead, tent the fingers just beyond the crown, and then settle the arm overhead. Now your bicep can just rest on the ear, that's okay. So the important part of moving healthy blood and healthy tissue towards the uterus is also respiration. When we're in anxious states, part of our breathing constricts and we don't get this blood flow and this full respiration. So when we're breathing into the side body, breathing and using these intercostals to expand, we're helping the diaphragm move up and down in our body. So extending through the tips of the fingers, take a nice big breath in, breathing once again towards the top space as you exhale that deep dive into anything that doesn't feel comfortable, any tension and tightness, anything you need to let go. We forget about lateral stretches, but they're very important in releasing some of this tightness in the lower abdominal wall and into those hip flexors. And then for respiration, when you have an anxious breath, you lift your shoulders towards your ears and you don't utilize these muscles in the ribs. So what we're trying to do is bring more flow towards those intercostal muscles, which are helpful with our respiration. I like to think about my ribs lifting up towards my shoulders and my hips moving away, like towards my feet, to get more space into that side body. So big breath in. On that exhalation, that deep, deep surrender. Down through the shoulders, down through that right hip, wherever you need to go. So a great little movement. Once again, if you sleep on your back, if you like to sleep on your stomach, these are nice side positions before you go to bed. If you had a day where you just need to come home after an appointment and just decompress, this is a really great way to get into some of that side space and side tissue. Please, I encourage you to stay here for a few moments longer if you decide. For those of you that are ready to switch sides, we first take the hand back to the waist. Once again, just settle the shoulders on top, the hips. Nice big breath in as you exhale. Bring this free hand, this left hand towards the floor. We slide onto the right elbow, and then we just push into the palms of the hands. I always like to do a little forward fold movement here. So raise the arms up and overhead. You can exhale, gently begin to fold forward, letting the head bow. So the shoulders can reach up towards the ears. We have a nice big inhalation, breathing into the back body. And as you exhale, perhaps the shoulders slightly forward. Drawing the hands to the shins, you can take your time as you round up vertebrae by vertebrae. And then we'll just switch over here to now the right side or left side. Taking your bolster with you, please, your block. Knees stack on top so you can just move the heels over to the side. Again, finding that 90 degrees with the hips and the legs, and then drawing down through the shoulder. Shoulders stack on tops, hips stack on top, bending the right elbow, taking the hand to the waist. So find that pocket that feels really comfortable with the outer edge of the ribs, and then we'll soften here. So moving, it's okay to kind of shift around until you feel comfort. We can't move the breath again if the body feels really constricted. So part of moving into our nervous system and working with breath work is to make sure that the body feels open. So breathing towards the top sides of the ribs on the exhalation, allowing the bottom to release. We feel this expansion upward and then this deep release towards the bolster. When you feel ready, you can take the arm up and overhead, tent the fingers, soften the shoulder away from the ear. Big breath in through the side body. So this is all about those intercostal muscles. They're right between our ribs, and the expansion is here. Oftentimes we breathe into the belly, ribs, and chest really fluidly, but can we breathe into the side wall? Extending through the fingertips, soften the shoulders away from the ears. Good. So finding the breath into the side wall, and then that slow, deep surrender. Not only relaxing into the top shoulder, the fingertips are lengthening beyond the crown, but we're also releasing into the bottom hips. You do want to feel like the left side of your hip, that head of the femur, is on the floor. The longer we stay in these poses, everything starts to shift. As one part of our body begins to relax, another muscle group might kick in and start to contract. So we're always honoring the changes, the ebb and flow, which is very indicative and very metaphorical, I think, of our fertility and conception journey. Everything is ebb and flowing. We cannot possibly control this journey. We try very hard to, but it's really an uncontrollable journey. And so how do we move through these ebbs and flows? How do we move through these cycles that come up and draw down? So finding that deep sense of surrender with each and every exhalation. Shoulders track away from the ears. Slow breath out. Breathing towards the side body, that full expansion and excursion, and the slow exhale out. Please, if you're here for a breath or two longer, stay. If you're ready to take the hand back to the waist, shoulder draws away from the ear. We take the fullness of the breath into the right side, that slow, deep surrender through the left. Bring your free hand in front of the right hand, pressing into that left forearm, and then we'll gently begin to stretch the legs in front. So one last time, take the arms up and overhead, lift the ribs away from the hips, and then we'll fold forward. So hands can touch the toes, the shins, the ankles, wherever they go that's comfortable within your own range. The intention is just to bring the shoulders towards the ears. We have a nice inhalation, breathing into the back line of the body, and then this slow, deep surrender out. Hands can stay to the shins. Gently begin to round up vertebrae by vertebrae, rolling the shoulders back to look forward. Please take your bolster just beside you. We'll need it in a moment, but we are going to transition onto our back. We have just a few postures left, and then we'll take our final relaxation. So if you shift over to the left or right side, press into the floor, lift the hips and the pelvis up for a moment. So there's a slight hover, and then very gently lower the sacrum down. We'll work with a twist here, so please bring the knees into the chest, wrap the arms around the shins, and we'll gently rock from side to side. Crossing your right knee over top of your left knee, shift onto your left hip. Left hand to the outer edge of the right thigh. And if you're really tight in your shoulders, you might need something underneath the head, so you can grab a block or a pillow. We reach the right arm up and overhead. Find a slight bend into the elbow. Let the fingertips just curl into the palm. So this one's all about releasing through your upper chest and back. Take a big inhalation here. We're breathing into the right side of the ribs. And every exhalation, we begin to unwind. So top of the shoulder first. That space between the shoulder blades. And then with each and every exhalation, we begin to unwind. So where we were breathing towards the intercostal muscles, the movement's still happening. This time here, we're adding more rotation. So at some point, we start to rotate from the upper shoulders down. You can also take a nice big breath in, breathe in towards the lower part of the belly. And as you exhale, let the weight of the belly soften towards the spine. Keeping the knee down. So the knee is more important to the floor than the arm, because this one's all upper thoracic, upper back, versus when we bring the shoulder towards the floor, it's more lower belly, lower back. So they're two different directional twists. When we hold and lift our shoulders towards the ears, the reason I love this in fertility and conception is because we have this really anxious way of breathing. And here we're just unwinding some of the tight tissue, especially that grips the side of the neck and the front of the pec and shoulders. Once again, staying here for however long you need. If you really start to feel like you're floating in this pose, letting the exhalation do all the work, stay here. If you're feeling like it's quite intense, bend the right elbow, shift the shoulder forward. We push into the floor with the feet. We once again take that gentle lift of the pelvis up. You're squeezing the glutes as you do so to lower down. We then stack the left knee over top of the right knee here. Drawing onto the right side, so right hip taking the left knee all the way to the floor. Settle your hips on top. Right hand to the outer edge of the left thigh, and then we reach that left arm up and over. So we want the hips to stack on top so that they can create this entire rotation through the upper body. So have a big breath in through the left side, the slow, deep surrender out. Top of the shoulder. Space between the shoulder blades with each and every exhalation trying to unwind. This twist almost becomes that perfect balance to help navigate what we can control throughout this process. Because your arm starts to draw towards the floor with the trust of the exhalation. We're not pushing the arm towards the floor. You're naturally, with the exhalation, trying to unwind. Vertebrae by vertebrae, as long as you're staying within that pain-free range of motion. If it does become too tense, you can take the hand to the waist, opening up with the shoulder. You'll still get that rotation, you just won't have all that pressure of the wrist and the elbows. So pausing here again, if you feel like you'd like to stay for a few more moments, I encourage you to do so. If you do feel ready to switch, you can bend your left elbow, roll the shoulder forward, draw onto the back. Good. Pressing up into the feet, squeeze the glutes, lift the pelvis. So I like this because it just sort of settles that left and right side of the back of the pelvis, and then we can lower down. Shifting knees into chest, wrap the arms around your legs, and give yourself a gentle rock from side to side. One last movement here. I want to teach you this really nice biofeedback movement for our nervous system. So with the heels underneath the knees, arms can be alongside the body for just a moment. So you want to find about 1 fist width distance between the knees. That's all you need. Open the arms nice and wide and then stack your elbows in front of your chest. Your hands will just drape down towards the edges of the shoulders. So your elbows are stacked in front of the heart. It doesn't matter which elbow is in front because we will change it in a moment. Now when you inhale, breathe towards your elbows and your forearms. And then as you exhale, let your shoulders just drop right down towards the floor. So what's happening here kind of physiologically in our body and in our nervous system is when we inhale and breathe towards our forearms and our elbows, it's creating some biofeedback for the nervous system to settle. So it's a deregulation response. When we're having maybe an anxious moment or a panic attack, or we're feeling really stressed out, maybe just before appointments, if you cross your elbows in front of your chest, we're giving sort of bi-stimulation. We're hugging onto ourselves, reminding the nervous system and the brain that the body is safe. So when you draw the breath towards the forearms, a slow, deep exhale to surrender. I like this position supine. You can also do this seated, but because it drops into the shoulders a bit, which can reduce some tension in the neck. So the next time you're feeling very overwhelmed with whatever it is on the journey, so much can feel overwhelmed, then just remember to give yourself a hug. Open up the arms nice and wide. Let's switch the opposite elbow in front. Palms of the hands can just rest beside the shoulders. Take a nice big breath in, breathing towards the biceps, the elbows, the heart space, this slow, deep surrender. And this slow, deep surrender, let the shoulders and the shoulder blades just connect right down into the mat. Good. So big breath in, move the breath as wide and as open as you can. Feel the contraction of your own body holding onto this space for you. Giving yourself a nice big hug. We oftentimes move throughout these days without acknowledging all of the hard work that we're doing, all of the emotional stress or strain. Know, please, that you are an amazing, miraculous being. You are such much more than this experience. Come back to the spaces of who you are. Lastly, open the arms nice and wide. Keep the arms to hover. Good, reaching through the fingertips, taking a slight bend into the elbows, and then we'll exhale, hug the knees into the chest. Wrap your arms around your shins and give yourself a gentle rock from side to side. We'll get ourselves ready for our final relaxation. So this is our Shavasana, and I recommend taking something underneath your knees. So when we're thinking about the nervous system to move into that relaxation response has to feel supported and safe. Those are the two most important things that our nervous system has to recognize. So prop yourself up, grab maybe a pillow or that chip foam block underneath the head. The second response for the nervous system is warmth. So I'd love for you to grab a blanket and take the blanket all over your feet, your shoulders, anywhere where you feel cold. So warmth is a really key part to releasing and honoring our nervous system and what it needs. And if you have bare toes and bare shoulders, grab your jacket, put on some nice fuzzy warm socks, whatever it is that you need to feel rested. And we'll close our eyes. So wrapping yourself in this warmth, it's like a cocoon. It's so lovely. And warmth also helps to regenerate a lot of movement in our tissue, cellular regrowth. It's not necessarily the coolness, it's always the warmth. So as warm as you possibly can, arms alongside the body, palms of the hands facing up. So shimmy a bit through your shoulders, your back, your pelvis, your legs, until you feel balanced on both sides. The left side of the body, the right side of the body. You can even bend the elbows, placing the palms of the hands on your belly. I love to place my hands on my belly all the time. And I think even more in fertility and conception to really connect to our body, right? We feel very disconnected, especially towards our reproductive organs and tissues. So placing your hands here is always this reminder to connect inwards. Closing the eyes, we'll take a nice big breath in through the nose, audible exhalation out through the mouth. So one more as such, taking a full inhalation to lift and expand. A slow, deep exhale out. We're quieting the space between the eyebrow center. Keep the lips together, separate the teeth, and let the tongue slowly fall. No tension anywhere along the ridge of the jaw, the front of the throat. Letting the back of the skull feel heavy and start to feel that gentle separation of the shoulder blades. Remember, we're widening those beautiful ornate doors that hold the spaces behind our heart. Next inhalation, breathing towards the palms of the hands, redirect the energy towards the warmth, and then this slow exhale, letting the weight of the belly begin to soften towards the low spine. Pelvis releases, thighs, toes, and shins just begin to draw out to the side. With every sensation of your exhalation, please allowing the physical body to sink deeper and deeper into the mat. This is your time in your own space to let go of anything that doesn't serve you in this moment. Emotionally, mentally, physically, any of those fears, judgments, expectations, and limitations. And the expectations you have for yourself, but also the expectations you have for other people, including your partner. So whatever comes to mind emotionally, mentally, that's coming up for you that causes any kind of stress or anxiety, letting the exhalation carry it downwards towards the earth. And we'll do this one at a time as those visualizations come to our third eye space and center. And then with every exhalation, we're drawing it down towards the earth. When you feel as though you've released as many of those fears, expectations, limitations, and judgments as you would like, and you find more stillness in the physical body, then we can begin to invite the breath a little bit deeper. On your inhalation, once again, to a count of 4 through the nose, and then a slow, deep exhale out through the mouth to a count of 6, 7, or 8. Inhale to a breath count of 4. Feel the belly, the heart rise and expand. And that slow, deep exhalation out, letting go. This slowness of the exhalation is what moves us out of that stress response and into the parasympathetic response. Within our body sits a very important nerve located on the left and right side. So from the base of that medulla oblongata down towards the neck, it has these beautiful centrals and tendons in the throat, down our esophagus, and in towards all of our internal organs called your vagus nerve. When we slow the exhalation down, we're enticing the vagus nerve to send a response to the body to relax, including our internal organs. So there's a calmness internally when we slow the exhalation down. Inhale to 4, exhale to 6, 7, and 8. If the exhalation feels challenging to slow down, please feel free to exhale through the mouth as if you're blowing through a straw, or also to exhale through the mouth as a gentle sigh. Keeping the eyes closed, you can slowly begin to bring some awareness back into your body, gently wiggle into your fingers and into the toes. Taking a nice big breath in, we'll exhale out through the mouth to that audible breath. Please reach and stretch the arms up and overhead. So elongate through the fingers, point your toes forward. So you have a nice stretch up the front of the body. And then exhaling the arms back alongside. Bend the knees, just push the bolster forward with the pads of your feet. And then we'll settle the feet to the outer edges of the mat. Let your knees just rest towards one another. Good. Arms can outstretch wide. Nice big breath in through the belly. Not adjusting the feet, just the legs. We sway them to the left side, over to the right side, kind of like those windshield wiper movements. Knees can then come into the chest. Wrap the arms around the legs. I like to lift chin to the chest for a moment, pause and hold, and then either roll to that left or right side with your arm underneath the ear and the free hand in front. Knees can stack on top. Pushing into the palm of the free hand, and then we'll just lift ourselves seated and facing forward. Wonderful. Taking the shoulders onto the ribs stacked over the pelvis, nice and tall. Palms of the hands draw together, thumbs connect at the heart center. We just take that nice deep breath in, always acknowledging the spaces of your heart. As you exhale, gently bow the head, saluting and honoring the light from within. And I offer you a namaste. Have such a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me. I hope you feel really calm and use this class before you go to bed in your evening routine. Bye, everyone.